Why do I meditate? Why am I sitting here reflecting at this time? Perhaps it's to recharge, to relax, to experience peace. All very good objectives, reasons. But this seated time is a very small percentage of my day. It's as if I'm living two separate lives. At these seated times, the purpose is to let go, to feel peaceful. But then as I move through the day, speed through the day, my sense of purpose is not so much focused on my inner world as trying to realize certain outcomes in the outer world. Outcomes around people or situations, productivity or personalities. Doesn't seem to be much connection between what I seek during the seated times in my inner world and what I pursue for most of the day in the outer world. Is there a way to unify what's happening inside and what's happening outside? They almost seem in conflict. What if during these seated times, I'm going into the depths of my true self, healing the relationship with the authentic self, being at peace with myself? And in my purpose, objective as I move through the day is to maintain that alignment, that inner state, inner harmony, inner peace in everything I do. How I approach tasks, how I interact with others. As if my whole day is a moving meditation. Seated times where I can very much focus on the experience, and times when I'm moving around. And the objective, the purpose is to maintain that experience. I might surprise myself in how much more rewarding and satisfying the day is, how much my quality of life increases. Liberated from living two different lives. Just one. Inner peace applied to create outer peace. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Good evening and welcome to Interview with the Raj Yogi. Tonight's session is being spiritually purposeful. And my sister Judy and I were actually chatting just a little briefly in terms of this topic. And this aspect of success is particularly a part of this aspect of what purpose is. And just listening to a bit of the commentary, perhaps you could share a bit about, we seem like we have purpose in life, but in terms of soul consciousness, what is the foundation of the study and what success means seems to be very linked. So if you could share about that, because again, we're not sure who has taken the course coming here, listening to us.
Om Shanti. I know this sense of purpose, not for everyone, but for many, can arise as they're going into young adulthood. Some are born knowing exactly what they want to do, but as we go into young adulthood, and there's many forces inside and out that can be pushing and pulling our attention in different directions around the topic of purpose. And I know for myself, as I came to that age where you're selecting a profession, etc., I was really challenged by this purpose idea. And I know how I felt coming to a Brahma Kumari center and hearing that peace can be your purpose. I immediately recognized that for me, that resonated. And purpose in life is really quite connected to happiness, which I think is something that is very important to everyone. That ideally, our life, our time and energy and resources are dedicated to something that we value. And traditionally, even people's names were connected to what their purpose, so Smith's son or Bookman or whatever. But this idea of really dedicating my life to something that aligns with who I am is very important. Not necessarily what I can do, but who I am. And that's a character qualities question. So peace was very, very important to me. Respect is very important. So when I feel that's my focus or intention, or if even more ambition in the day, and I honor that in the day, I feel like it's been a purposeful, meaningful, and therefore happy day. Raj Yoga, which is all about exploring spirituality and restoring our original highest level of dignity. Obviously, that alone is a purpose, a very, very worthwhile purpose, because that inner state, the relationship with self, colors everything I do. So that's a qualitative journey. It's about bringing back the qualities, the original qualities or character of the soul. So that's the first purpose, is restoring the self. And the second step would be moving through the world in that now healthy state. That would be the second stage of purpose, because that's going to be meaningful. That's going to, if you will, add value to my life by me giving value to what I do. So those are some initial thoughts.
Do you feel that, how important do you feel that soul consciousness is a part of this? Because there are many who really do care about their character, and there are still some who want to be able to maybe not look at this aspect in terms of what are the definitions of success, but like, is there more of a limitless possibilities, or what is the implications of being aware of who I am on a deeper level? What are your feelings about that?
I think that is the main thing, that it blows it wide open, if you will. We have quite actually a limited sense of what we're capable of when we think we're the body. The moment that we start to think of ourselves in a spiritual way, it's incredible, actually. All these big words that are important to us at this time, like resilience, compassion, forgiveness. This comes very naturally when we're soul conscious, where it's sometimes a real strain when we're body conscious. So soul consciousness is just blowing the cap off of what we're capable of as human beings. And again, if I'm not fully honoring my capacity, I don't get to experience that full happiness. You know, the story we sometimes talk about, of course, is Hanuman, who turns out was the son of the god of the wind, but he didn't know that. And there was a critical moment in the story where really, you know, it was life and death for his the colleagues isn't the word, but those that he was with in this particular endeavor. And so that's a very important purpose, you know, to save lives. And there's something very specific he had to do that was going to require what he felt were things beyond his capacity. And the moment he was told who he really was, suddenly those capacities were unlocked. So the idea of the power of awareness or consciousness, that as souls we are actually built to be benevolent, and not just, you know, thinking about the self or limiting, putting boundaries around our benevolence, but benevolence in an incredibly unlimited way. So soul consciousness changes our capacity. It's just a switch of awareness.
You said something the other day, and it has come up in regular class for us as students, this aspect, the mind and the intellect. And just even on, I guess you can say, a day-to-day level or something more relevant to individuals, that you can just have thoughts about whatever it is. Doesn't mean you have bought into those thoughts. And so we're talking about things that are very superficial inside in terms of thinking about things versus things that have gone deeper in terms of acceptance, in terms of my sense of reality, my perception, my attitude. So in terms of one's interactivity, when you talk about soul consciousness, what does that look like inside in terms of, you know, opening up that capacity that, because for some, they're pushing very hard. They mentioned they have headaches. For some, they're closing their eyes. For some, they're having a lot of thoughts and trying to have a very powerful experience. And I'm certain that everyone, regardless of whoever the student is, they're obviously trying their best and trying to see, am I actually moving in that direction in which there is that kind of success, there is that shift inside to have those types of feelings, have that kind of natural capacity emerge.
It definitely takes patience and faith. And actually, one of the key principles in our spirituality is the company you keep. So it's amazing how keeping the company of those whose intellects have already opened up can actually help me create an environment which supports changes in my intellect. I had a very interesting experience today. It's a dance class, and I had been told that 9 had signed up, but only 5 had shown. So the missing 4 arrived late, and the class had started. There was no time to, usually, if there's newcomers, there's a little introduction, a little explanation. There was no chance to do that. They just parachuted in. It was these 4 young adults, really sweet. But I felt for them because, Lord, you know, parachuted too. And so they came while the song was going on, so we couldn't even say anything to them. And I could feel the vibration of their shock of what they just parachuted into. And I knew that because they're together, they're kind of giggling with each other, and they could be coloring each other. And so the moment the song stopped, we turned around and said, "Don't you dare quit. Stay here." I explained a few things. Don't you dare quit. And I could constantly feel they're on that edge of wanting to give up, that this is just. But as the class went, with time, they started to settle in. They started to focus more on themselves, and they started to be affected by the atmosphere of the room, so that they were able, and their attitude changed, because what I picked up the most was this doubt that they could do it, which we were covering up by giggling with each other. So to come side, it was a strong sense of, yes, this is what I want. But little steps, they could take little steps. So they stuck it out. They started to figure out what was going on. It was quite to watch. It made me think about something, because old habits and self doubt are what to do. Some ways of doing things because they feel secure, even when they were, because that stuff wasn't working, and always on the edge of giving up. So, first, of course, faith has to be developed quite early. So, one of the quick questions we ask is, even what you're doing, do you have the faith that you are a soul? Second off, the importance of collective study, this company where you're with other souls whose intellects are orienting towards us. It creates an atmosphere. It can help to shift those attitudes. So faith, patience, and good company are really helpful.
It's hard to sing. Do you find that even your quality of your thoughts change in terms of what I mean? It's like, you've actually used this example. You come into the study, I am a soul, right? And then, I don't know, 25 years in, maybe 5 years in, I am a soul. I'm just using an example, but the quality of what that feels like to be able to, kind of like a secret code to access something inside. In terms of that, when you talk about faith and patience, these different qualities are required, but you're practicing something for a long period of time. Hopefully, change is happening. But do you find that things become more powerful and deeper, but it's all, again, very invisible?
Excuse me, the reason we say patience is I need time to accumulate power. It's not a visible kind of power. It's actually power, invisible power. It's spiritual power. It's the power of purity, the power of silence, the power of truth. This is acute. It is giving me mastery in to it's a very soft power. It's giving me the mastery to sustain peace, to sustain elevation, clarity, so that yes, the thoughts slowly, slowly. So we're just trying to buy time. All sorts of other things are going to be erupting along the way, and to the best of detached observers of that. But because of that faith, that's my compass through the storms. And slowly I keep building power and experience.
And you mentioned about this aspect of purpose, that this is all about character. And we were sharing about, and you were sharing about how soul consciousness is very important. Could you share about, in terms of, there are some who really care a lot about their character, but there are going to be a lot of challenging situations where they may not be able to emerge that within themselves. Have you had moments, in I would say perhaps maybe your latter part of your study, because as you mentioned, you build more power, things go deeper, you can access things more. Have any examples where you've been in challenging situations where this accumulation, this development of this awareness of yourself, the experience of it, is showing up? Maybe surprisingly, when many would say you should have been, you have every right to react in that situation. You have every right to get upset in that situation.
as you begin and continue with this study, you attract two very formidable types. One is, if you will, your highest potential, which is, I think, an idea that most people can. So that becomes an ally in this. It becomes your constant company. And the other one, of course, is the company of God. And those two are powerhouses. Those two allies are powerhouses. The awareness of your highest potential, and also this company of God, who is your number one advocate. So it's quite surprising. I mean, you have to still show up. You still have to have the courage, but surprising how much these two allies can reveal how much capacity we have in situations. And this is what I've noticed more situations that seem overwhelming head. I stop the overthinking and definitely the worrying, etc. They're totally useless to me. They're going to take me down. And I refer to these two allies. But there is this capacity, but also um, to take the company of God in terms of directing me through this. And it's amazing how powerful, very often this happens over and over again. I had a fellow student send a gift in the mail one day. Beautiful, they were an artist, so it was a beautiful mixed media artist, beautiful piece, which we've talked about, that a healed heart never plans. Because this is an area that consistently kind of is overwhelmed. Ego is to control. Ego controls, is it plans and plans and plans? So this capacity is actually spontaneous. There's no ego. It's just spontaneous, completely trusting that we will be able to respond and create accurately in the situation. So when going to a fitness class, such as today, pretty fun. I it's a second class, no time to plan. But it got very interesting because I was sitting chatting with a spiritual student. There was a clock in. And someone said, "What time is it?" And the class was just after 12. And I said, "It's 10 to 12." I still had to get the car, get the car. Do that. He said, "I just mentioned something." I don't know everything. These classes, time and again, are far more successful than 20% of the time. Sometimes I have to surrender. I have to. They just go far. So something about this power, spiritual power of letting go, that unleashes these capacities we don't even know we have, and to give them a chance, but not to do anything, to keep, as you say, focusing on the soul consciousness, keeping the relationship with self, taking a lot of power from God, so that we can to be spontaneous and keep discovering more and more about the self.
There's a couple of it is in terms of purpose related. You've said it in numerous occasions. You have so much faith in the human spirit, and you also have faith in just the invisible in terms of the practice in the study. I know we say the power of yoga or the power of remembrance, the power of soul consciousness. Do you find that that has increased through the years, or do you? Well, it sounds like a silly question, but if you've always had that inside of you, um, because souls do ask, can I have more faith? Um, or it's even just dipping their toe in the water, so to symbolically speaking, just to, or they look at someone who's been in the study for so long and says, "Oh my gosh, how could they? I want to be able to have that kind of trust." And it just seems like a big mountain to climb over to get to that point. And we often look at the senior students, the daddies, right, and we think, "Oh my gosh," right? But they've had humble beginnings too.
it's true. I do have faith in spirit, and we suffer from not giving ourselves a chance to experiment spiritually because that strong sense of purpose is always driving me. I have to get this outcome and I have to do it this way. One thing I noticed about myself, I don't know if it's faith, but before coming to this study, it was survival. It seemed to be a natural instinct. It's that I liked silence a lot. I felt a challenging situation. I liked to kind of and go into a very still space. And what spirituality has allowed me to do is to trust that it's validated that. So I can actually also progress, strengthen my relationship with silence. So I find that getting deeper and deeper as my go-to. I think that most people wished some human spirits. And I think that whether on the surface or deep inside, we all have an intuitive understanding of the importance of spirituality.
Wow, look at how fast the time flies. And so we'll have a little reflection.
And so to be at peace with the self, not having to self, very comfortable with self. So that I don't get fresh time to go inside, to a calm place inside, and listen. Self. Some call it a little voice inside. Spiritual wisdom, inner wisdom, self trust. To go into that quiet place and listen, it may just be saying, wait. To go. Doesn't seem like much of a response at all. But it could be powerful, most powerful thing I can do in that moment. Taking time when it's challenging times or ordinary moments to slow down, go into that quiet place inside, just me, and listen. Om Shanti. Thank you. Appreciate your presence, those on Instagram and those on YouTube. So we will hopefully be coming back with new dates for Learn About Meditation at the Academy. And those tend to happen, I would say loosely, I wouldn't say, but the fourth Saturday of each month, but we don't actually clearly indicate on there, just whatever availability that the Academy has been so generous to provide. I believe we also will be needing to post new dates as well for Raja Yoga courses, but
There might be a bit of changes in terms of the meditation piece online, but I won't say much more about that. We want things to be a bit more meaningful and accessible for souls, especially there has been a large library of meditation sessions recorded online. So we'll bring more updates for everyone who is on email, but hopefully we'll put something on the website as well. But please, still at this point in time, join us for the interviews on Tuesdays. Sorry, we've been gone for quite some time, but we do intend on keeping those going. World Meditation Hour on the third Sunday of every month, and we do have drop-in sessions on English on the Mondays, and it's Hindi on the Wednesdays at the Inner Peace Center. All of that is on the website, brahmakumaris.ca/Calgary. Thank you for joining. Shanti.